Hey you guys, I just got a question about how to be vulnerable without victimizing. And I wanted to do a little video on this to explain it because it was the second time today that I was asked this. As this morning somebody asked me, often when I feel vulnerable I feel very alone and I have the feeling that I have to do everything on my own. And I need help or I need assistance or support, and instead of asking for this I start attacking the other, and I think this is very common for us to do. So I want to explain something about being vulnerable without victimization, so without blame, and this all starts with expressing your needs and knowing that you have a need, because often we're triggered and we're not even aware that we're actually needing something. So we're attacking the other. We're starting to feel insecure, and instead of looking at that, we start to attack the other on what the other isn't doing right. That's not very helpful though, but then we end up in a conflict situation. And you can even look at it like this. So when you are in a dialogue or in a relationship, then there's a positive side and a negative side. So one is on this side and one is on the other side. And when you're all the way here, you're in polarization, and then you're often in conflict. When you are, however, in the middle, in this region, then there is consensus and there is a way to listen to each other and talk to each other and having common ground. But when you're too far away from each other, you end up being here and here. And when you're triggered, for example, like this is the negative side, so you feel something like like a boundary is overstepped, or you need something and you feel bad, and the other person is not really aware, he feels really good. So you want to make the other person aware of that you need something. So this person feels alone, feels helpless and powerless, and feels really small. And now, these days we have a really hard time expressing our true needs and vulnerabilities to the other person, because we're afraid to be overpowered or not heard or maybe ridiculed. Many things can happen. Or maybe it is rationalized how you feel. So we tend to hide ourselves and make ourselves even smaller. But at some point you cannot sustain this anymore, because you feel so bad and you are in need, or your boundaries are overstepped, and then you blow yourself up. This is also what I talked about yesterday in Dutch. So you start attacking the other person and blaming the other person. And then you end up in a conflict situation where this person is moving away and you're moving in this direction. So in order to get closer to each other, it is important to make a movement into this direction. And how do we do this? It starts with allowing your emotions. So allow your emotions. When you're triggered, when you're angry, when you're sad, allow it. Don't resist yourself. When you are angry, you're angry. And if you suppress it, it's only going to be more explosive. So you can tell yourself, okay, I'm angry, and acknowledge that. And you can say it out loud, or you can say it in your head, but just acknowledge the fact that you're angry. Or if you feel like crying and you're really sad, then you acknowledge that and you say, I'm sad and I'm allowed to cry now. And this is already a first step into acceptance, because often, naturally in this world, we're not really allowing ourselves to cry, because that is too risky, or then maybe we're a drama queen or something like that. So when you acknowledge the fact that you're sad and that you feel like crying, and you take away the resistance towards yourself that you are in the need of crying, and just let it happen, that's already a step towards the middle right here. Because you're like in the middle, you're a normal sized person. You're not small, You're not big, but you're a normal size, and you're here with your emotions and your feelings and your needs and your boundaries. So when you have established, okay, I'm sad or I'm angry, then you can start asking yourself, what is it that I need? So instead of, like, we tend to blame the other and say, like, oh, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, or you're unavailable or this or that. And instead of doing that, just ask, could you hold me? Or I feel really upset. Can you just be with me? Or to really start expressing what the need is that you actually have, which is not easy because often we don't really even know what we need. So it can be helpful to express your emotion so the other person knows, and then you're also owning it. And that makes it safer for the other person to stay around. Now, then you can start expressing your needs, like, I would like to have your support in this or that. And this can still be a very scary thing to do, and a very vulnerable thing to do, and also to do it in a soft way, like to just express, like, I feel insecure, or I feel like I cannot do it on my own, and I have this belief that I should be able to do it on my own, but I can't. So once you then start to express, like, okay, I need this, then you have to see how the other person responds. Not everybody is able to give you what you need. And in a way, we have to accept that, which is hard, because you have a need, and when the other person is not able to give it to you, we often end up thinking that you're not allowed to have it, which is not the case. You know, if somebody is emotional unavailable and you need his or her support for you to be emotional available, it doesn't mean that you're not entitled to it, because you are. It's just that the other person maybe isn't capable because of his own pain and history or trauma. And this is what it really means to be vulnerable without victimization, because you own your needs, you own your emotions, you own, so you say, like, no matter how you're going to respond, I still know that I am entitled to have this emotion, I'm entitled to cry, I'm allowed to be angry, I'm allowed to have this need, I'm entitled to have this boundary. And regardless on how you're going to respond, I'm still okay with me for the fact that I need this. And if you can manage to do that, and just you can think thoughts like this in your head. For example, if you're really scared to cry, you can think and tell yourself, I'm safe, and lean back, and I'm safe, and I'm allowed to cry now. And soften with that. And so you're kind of disentangling yourself from the other person's response to you. And this is very useful, because then you're holding yourself, your own emotions and your own needs and your boundaries in a way that you're acknowledging the fact that you have them and that you need them, and that is okay. Often, let me switch the camera again, or what can be the case is that when you start, so when you're coming out of hiding, here you're small and in hiding, and instead of hiding you start expressing your true emotions and true needs, then it can happen that this person is so not used to that and feels so triggered because of that, that he is going to go into conflict, that he's going to attack you or blame you or ridicule you. And this is just the defense mechanism of this person who doesn't want to go to the negative side of things. So, for example, I had a mother asking, sometimes I get really angry with my husband because he doesn't listen to me when I want to tell him something important about my child. And he refuses to listen. And then I get upset. I say, you have to listen because it's important. And sometimes the guy, it didn't happen in this case, but sometimes the guy can say, well, it's just, you're over exaggerating, or overreacting or you're creating a problem that's not there. This is a way to avoid to go for him or her to go to the negative side of things, because it feels better to stay in the positive end, right? Everything's fine, I feel good, I feel great, and then there's this other person coming with information that is maybe not so great because he feels bad, he feels sad, he feels angry. So this is an ego strategy of this person to avoid having to see what he has to deal with. So that can look like an attack or ridicule or sorry, got distracted. And the thing you need to do is you don't even need to respond to this. You don't need to defend yourself, because that's often what we then do, right? We start defending ourselves, but we don't need to do that. The only thing we need to do is believe in ourselves that our needs and our emotions are okay to be there and that we're allowed to have them. So, and then really, like I said, lean back and breathe into your belly and tell yourself, I'm safe. I'm safe to have my emotions. I'm safe to have my needs. I'm safe to have my boundaries. Regardless of how the other person is responding to me, I am still allowed to have them. And this can trigger a lot of things in you, like anger or resentment even, or nausea or fear. And your only job is to let all these feelings go through your body and let them eventually drop down, because you felt them and you've acknowledged them, but you didn't react to them. So you don't need to react to your fear. You only need to feel it, right? So if somebody's coming you in an attacking way, it can trigger a lot of things. The only thing you need to do is to tell yourself, I'm safe. I'm allowed to have my boundaries. I'm allowed to have my needs. I'm allowed to have my emotions. And you can also tell this person and say, like, what you just said hurt me, or I don't appreciate when you speak to me in this way, or I don't like to be spoken in this manner too. And this is a way that you acknowledge your boundary, but you're not defending it. You're not making it a pro or con thing. It's just like, this is how it is for me, and that's what you're going to have to deal with. And eventually, when you become really calm and like embodied with this, and with embodiment I feel like you become relaxed with the fact that you have this need. So that means overturning your or breaking through your own inner belief systems. Like, for example, the example I started out with, a mother who feels like I'm in it alone, I need to do a lot on my own. She probably learned from her childhood on, which was absolutely the case for me, I need to do everything on my own. I need to be able to handle things on my own. I need to be strong, right? This is a way to be strong, and that's good, and that's appreciated in society, so I learned that. But with that, I also learned to discard help, and when I actually need help, instead of asking for it, I tended to attack the other person and push that person further away by blaming him, or right? And this is victimization, because I was the victim of the situation. Whereas I was not, because I was fulfilling and living out my own belief system, meaning the belief system that I had to do things on my own. And when I faced that belief system and stepped towards or through my fear, meaning, okay, I am turning my belief system into a new one, meaning I don't need to do it on my own. That means that I'm going to express my need now and my vulnerability, and maybe even cry about the fact that I had to do it for so long on my own, or in my childhood, that I needed to do it on my own in my childhood. So I let down, or I let go of that emotion. I cry and I let it show in a safe environment, so with my partner. And the more I get to be relaxed and allowing myself to have this experience and to have my emotion and to have my vulnerability, the more my partner or the person I'm with is going to respond in a comforting way. Because when I attack him, of course, he feels okay, I'll better take my distance because I don't want to go into this. But when I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable, I get much more safe to be approached for the other person. And this is how we get help eventually, by truly showing our true colors and their feelings. But some people are not able to go there. They, regardless of how okay you are with your feelings and with your needs and boundaries, when they're not okay with theirs, and when they have a lot of judgment about it, and when they're really stuck in their own ego or survival strategies, then they often stay in conflict with you and they just keep on going in their ways and they cannot relax. And this is then, this is a situation where you should step away for at least for the time being and let the other person resolve their issues, their triggers that have been, like, your vulnerability can trigger something in the other. For example, when women cry, for men it can be often the case that they feel like overwhelmed with how to solve this problem that the woman has, whereas the woman doesn't want to have it fixed. They just want to have a partner that holds space for them, right? They just want to express their emotions and feelings and be safe and okay with that, like be received with that, which is pretty hard. So when let's say in this example that let's say that the guy feels really overwhelmed and feels really triggered by the emotions of this woman, and he's like, oh damn it, I cannot solve it. So he's going to rationalize it, he's going to marginalize it, he's going to make it smaller, or he's going to want to walk away. Maybe he calls you drama queen. It doesn't mean he's right. You're still allowed your emotions, and he needs to start dealing with the fact that he doesn't know how to respond in an emotional situation because he's moving away from his own emotions. He's not connected to his own heart. And that is exactly where we need to go. We all need to be more connected to our hearts and to our feelings, because that's where the magic happens, and that's where the real connection happens, and that's where love happens. And that's also something we really, really desire. But in order to do so, we must be vulnerable without pushing the other away. So without attacking, without blaming, but just saying, look, this is what I need. And that's owning the fact that you're not able to do it all on your own, or that you need help, or that you are not as perfect as you would like to present to the world that you are. But you're human, and so to be vulnerable, to not victimize yourself and stay small, but also not to blow yourself up, to overpower somebody else. That's just survival strategies. No, it's really, we're supposed to take up our own true space with our needs and our emotions and our boundaries. And it goes like this: I'm okay when I cry, I'm okay when I'm angry, I'm allowed to be angry. And the more I'm allowed to be angry, the less explosive I'm going to be. The more I'm allowing myself to cry, the less of a struggle it's going to be to release my emotions. And the more I'm allowed to express my needs and just say, like, this is what I need, the sooner I'm going to get it and more able I'm going to be to receive it. And the more people I'm going to attract who can give me what I need, because I'm open to it and I'm okay with it. And then when it comes to boundaries, when you feel threatened, it's I think probably the hardest, because when we feel threatened, our survival strategies kick in the fastest. We don't even notice. So we either fight, we flee, or we freeze. And it's just important to become aware of that this happens. So just notice when you're fighting, and then remember, oh, what is this? How do I feel? What is it actually that I need? And how can I become softer? And when you are frozen, then it's more about how can I, or what do I need in order to unfreeze? So how can I warm up? How can I get out of the paralysis? And what would I need to in order to get there? And mostly that's breathing into your belly and leaning back and telling yourself you're okay and you're allowed to feel what you feel, because paralysis is always an inner resistance toward yourself, that you're not allowed to feel what you feel. It's a suppression. And then fleeing, like if you want to take flight, like leave, then you're powerless. You can never get what you want. You can never negotiate. You can never talk. You can never receive. So you have to put yourself into the room, and this can be a very scary thing to do, to start really taking up space when there's an attack or when there is a threat. But it's the most important thing you can do, because you're moving from the small position towards the normal position. So this is the blown up person. I should have drawn it a bit bigger maybe. I can do that. So we have a really big person. He's dead. He is fighting. And then there's a small person who is hiding. And then there's a normal person who's okay with his or her vulnerabilities, with his or her needs, and has an open heart, is connected to his heart, is breathing into his belly, and therefore is connected to his mind, reason, to the facts, and also to his power, which is in the belly, and also to his heart, which is obviously here, and able to connect with other people on this level. And these two, they're scared, they're cut off from their bodies, they're living in their heads. This one is blowing himself up and overpowering others, and this one is hiding, making him or herself small. So if you want to empower yourself, and that goes for both ways, because remember, both states are a state of fear. That's not a powerful state to be in. So best thing to do is breathe into your belly, put yourself into the room, lean back, and start receiving. Start receiving what the other person is saying, and that doesn't mean that what the other person is saying is the truth. That is so important. Often we think when we're under attack, we think once we start listening, that must be equal to the other person is right. But that's not the case. The other person who is attacking, remember this one, he is also afraid. Once you can see that this attacker is afraid, you empower yourself, because you see that the other person is human and imperfect. And once you see that, it's already less of a threat. And you're able to come out your shell a little easier, because you can see a human person, and look at that, your heart is more open. And remember to keep breathing into your belly. Here's your power. Without your belly, and you're breathing into your belly, you're nowhere. Just imagine for a second you're afraid, and look at it, what it does to your breathing. Your breathing goes more shallow, more superficial. Your voice even goes up. And powerful people, they have a very low voice, and they're very calm, and they can really speak with authority. And that happens to you as well. So when you are in conflict and you start defending yourself, and you start blaming, then you're working really hard to make your point. Whereas when you lean back and you say, this is just how it is for me, this is my boundary, or this is what I need, and I'm going to have to deal with the fact when you're not able to give it to me, what I would do with that, but it's still my need, and I'm okay with having that need. I'm not going to throw that need away just because you cannot give it to me. And that makes you allowing yourself to be you, instead of adapting to somebody else's needs, somebody else's wishes, somebody else's emotions even. So that's what that was my topic about vulnerability without victimization. So important. When we're in the victim corner, we're powerless. And often vulnerability is perceived as being weak, but the truth is we're not weak when we are showing our emotions and when we're showing our needs and boundaries. It's just that society has condemned it to a place that it's not good, right? So we need to move through that and move through our conditioning and through our fear. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye bye.